Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of AutoCentral, South Africa's #1 motoring podcast. My name is George Mienie, and as usual, I'm joined by Wandile Sishi. How's it, Wandi?
Not too bad. I'm finally back, you know?
Finally back. Wandi's been on a bit of leave, and our previous show was just me.
Yeah, it was.
Myself and I, and Bobby Petkoff. If you remember, go back and watch that show if you want to learn about the right to repair second episode. But that being said, where can people find our shows?
So you can definitely catch our show first on cliffcentral.com. So that's just the audio, which streams every Monday at 9 a.m. But if you want to see our faces, you can also find us on the AutoTrader SA YouTube channel. Alternatively, you can also listen to our podcast on Spotify or iTunes or whatever sort of podcasting network you use. I think we're on predominantly those two for most people. And yeah, lastly, if you are watching the YouTube channel, please hit the subscribe button and like the videos. We'd like to see your feedback as well.
Exactly. Please give us feedback. We want to improve.
We do.
Right. What's in this episode today? So we answer the question most motoring enthusiasts constantly have to defend, and that is why do we care about cars, or why should we care about cars? And we unpack that. And then later on in the show, we'll get our expert journalist, Chad Lückhoff, to join us and unpack the new 2021 Mercedes-Benz E200, which incidentally is not the most sold model. I would have thought it would have been the C-Class. Sorry, is the most sold model. I would have thought it would be in the C-Class, and it's not the C-Class.
Yeah, me too.
It's actually the E200. So, and then lastly, we answer 3 burning questions from our Ask AutoTrader platform. So let's get right into it, Wandi. Why do we care so much about cars? The internal combustion engine, or the ICE vehicle, as we like to put it, is arguably one of the most one of the best inventions in our lifetime, and probably our ancestors' lifetime too. Probably only succeeded by the computer.
Yeah, I mean, if you taking out, I wouldn't say like fire was an invention, right? That was just like a discovery. So
isn't there a car called the Discovery? Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Fire was discovered.
Yeah, it wasn't like an invention. Yeah. I personally, I feel that cars are, but you need computers in cars as well. So.
Well, cars seem to have defined our technological progress since then. I mean, cars were discovered, invented, put it whichever way you want. But, in the late 1800s,
Yeah, basically.
And a lot of what the world does is very dependent on motor vehicles. Let's not call it just the car. I mean, it's the motor vehicle, it's the truck, it's all of those things that have wheels that get you from point A to point B, or get something from point A to point B. So today we'll unpack, dare I say, the philosophical and ideological reasons why we should care about our cars. So let's get into it. But before we do, Wandi, briefly summarize, why do you care about your car?
Okay, so this is a question that I am asked all the time. I come and sit with people and I just start rambling about, the marvels that is the automotive vehicle. And people are always like, just, shut up after a while. Because
is it that annoying?
It's that annoying to them. So finally, I think it's, we can finally squash this conversation. But to me, the 3 main reasons why I think everyone should care about cars is, firstly, literally human progress. Like you said, without cars, so many things would not be where we are. It's changed how people get things done. Ultimately, I'm talking about the works. Whatever you're trying to do, cars usually a sense of it. The second one is just economics. We saw in South Africa that the automotive industry makes up a huge percentage of our GDP.
Well, new car, 7%, and if you add in the retail of used and all the ancillary, retail and production, this is a total guess.
Yeah.
I got no data to support this, but I would think it's closing in on 20, maybe even more %.
Yeah, I mean, anything bigger than that would probably be, pharmaceuticals. I have no idea, but I mean, it's huge. It's so important. We just can't lose it. And I think it's always going to be around. But lastly, I think most importantly today is expression. A lot of people always lead with that, but I think it's deeper than that. It's not just expression.
Very interesting.
What about you? What's
interesting reasons? My reasons are really very simple. A lot less philosophical than yours. It's really mobility. Since the dawn of time, people have wanted to move around.
Yeah.
And then independence. independent mobility. So, getting from point A to point B when you want, how you want, and doing it in style, and then that independence. The first time you drive that car as a youngster and you go out by yourself,
it's a game changer.
Yeah.
Your whole life changes, right?
So I would say mobility and independence. So let's unpack some of the key reasons why the humble motor vehicle should be cared about. And I suppose the first thing to point out is that it has revolutionized transportation, because before the motor vehicle or the car,
it was like trains or something.
We used trains, steam engines.
Yeah.
What was before cars? Steam engines, horse and carriage.
Ships. That was kind of the only way, and that took eons.
Exactly.
It was just kind of a very slow way, a very destructive way to the environment. It sucked. Kind of to just summarize.
You think that those things were more destructive than the cars?
100%. I actually saw a documentary on the shipping industry.
Yeah.
And how the cruises that people go on, how incredibly harmful that is to the environment.
Oh, so some people that want to save the planet that might go on ship cruises might not know that you're actually destroying the environment more than ever by going on that ship cruise.
That's why Greta Thunberg, when she went to the UN, I don't know what it was, the UN Accords or whatever, she went to the
Did she walk?
Conference. No, she took a ship, but it was I think it was like solar powered or something, but it was completely green.
Oh wow.
Because she's cognizant of those sort of things.
Gee whiz.
Yeah. Wow.
Solar powered ship. I didn't even know you got a solar powered ship. But what effectively would take lengthy amounts of time now takes hours. I mean, to get from here to Durban, Joburg. We're sitting in Joburg. From Joburg to Durban now is a what? 6-7 hours drive.
5 hours if you me.
We won't talk about that. 6 or 7 hours to get to Durban. Whereas if you went on a horse and carriage or even a train, it may take you days.
I have no idea, but I would assume it's more than 16 hours.
Pretty sure. You can get there very, very quickly. And I mean, let's not talk about airplanes, but cars specifically gives you that level of independence. So three key reasons, or should I say, key reason number one. There's three levels of freedom that seem to exist with the advent of the motor vehicle, and the first one is that. People can travel freely. So I think that's one key reason is people can travel absolutely freely. There's no hindrance. You can get in your car, turn the key, drive somewhere.
Yeah. I think back in the day, cars were not as accessible as they were, and that stopped a lot of people from doing a lot of things. The fact that we've come to a place where anyone can pick up a car for not much, I mean, still a big purchase, but for reasonably cheap, and your whole life completely changes. Your standard of living changes. If there's an emergency, you can get to there quicker. If you want to go do something recreational, you can do it.
Well, I mean, talking about, so I suppose what we're saying is that, the reason number one, or should I say the levels of freedom number one is it liberates us.
Yeah, completely.
Let's have a look at what happened in lockdown, because during lockdown,
it's actually good.
During lockdown, we couldn't drive anywhere, right?
Yeah. And we felt like we were caged.
We were caged, exactly. But I was listening to something on the radio the other day. I still listened to terrestrial radio. I hardly ever. I specifically wanted to listen to this show. Yeah. So I listened to the radio, and the show was about head trauma.
Yeah. Head trauma from what? From
anything. So there was a doctor on that was explaining the three different kinds of head trauma.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into that because that's not what the show is about. But during lockdown, the incidence of head trauma came plummeting down. The same as, the incidence of people getting admitted to casualty.
Yeah.
And a lot of head trauma, I'm going to say most because, he just used the word a lot of head trauma, comes from motor vehicle accidents.
Interesting.
Either being a pedestrian or being in the car itself.
Yeah.
Okay. So as much as motor vehicles have liberated us, as you put it,
they've also
there's also a negative consequence.
Of course, but that's anything. I'd argue with that for basically anything that you do. There's going to be positive and negatives.
Yeah,
and you kind of have to just weigh the pros and cons and come to a decision.
And I suppose another level of freedom is you can just get in and drive.
Yeah, that's the best one for me.
I love driving long distances by myself.
Me too.
Because it allows you to just think.
When I'm stressed or when I'm having a fight with a loved one, I just drive. And when I come back, I'm a lot calmer.
Yeah.
I know that might not be the safest thing to do, but it definitely frees me. And it feels like I'm running or riding a horse.
Riding a horse. Yeah, I like that. And then think about your home. Is your home truly yours? Or are you subject to your neighbors?
I mean, I stay in a gated community, so I can't always do whatever. Like if I wanted to paint my house black, for instance, I wouldn't be able to do that because it's kind of like rules. A set code. Yeah. But my car, that's another issue. I could do whatever I want with it.
So I suppose, unlike the car with your home, you can't just do and act like you want.
No, you can't.
Because your neighbors are going to have an issue with that.
Yeah.
But inside your car, you can pretty much
do whatever you want.
Yeah. And then key reason number 2, cars and human psychology.
Yeah.
So
there's a science to this, finally.
Tell us about the science.
So basically, science has a lot to do with why you should care about cars. That's kind of the simple answer. There are studies that have been done where scientists have found that there are certain associations that we have with cars which come directly from how we see people.
Well, what was the most interesting for me is that facial features is what you're talking about.
Basically.
A car represents the facial features.
I think everyone's looked at a car face before. I mean, recently we were talking about the beaver-faced BMW. And associated with, they get some sort of perception or an emotional release from looking at the face of a car. So there's a science to how that expression or what that car face gives you and what you want to show to the world. So as much as you like to think that there's no science to just buying a car, it's not just a car.
Well, car manufacturers apparently use psychological specialists to help them design cars. So a boxier car is more aggressive.
Yeah.
And just look at sports cars; they're slightly boxier and bolder.
I mean, obviously there's aerodynamics involved, but even
it's not all about aerodynamics.
Even the cars that aren't necessarily sporty, the car manufacturer would make it boxier and make it more aggressive, and you get that perception right when you see it.
So a car tells you a lot about your personality as well. So key reason number 3, do you drive your car? Does your car drive you? So, are you picky about the color?
Yeah.
Does your car really influence what your personality is like?
I 100% believe it does. 100%. When I was picking my car, I wasn't just looking for A to B. I wanted something that really kind of, made me feel the way I want to be.
Yeah, but then does that control you in hindsight? Because now you're boxing yourself, you're pigeonholing yourself, as they would put it.
Well, it's an aspiration, right? I think everyone has an idea of who they are or what they want to be, almost like dress for the job that you want and not the one that you have. Everyone wants to put their best front forward. Best foot forward. And I think
hopefully you're always walking forward.
I'm just giving up on that statement. But yeah, basically I think a lot of people want a car that's going to speak to who they are.
And then on the flip side, I suppose key reason number 4 is people often feel judged and are judged by what they drive.
Yeah.
I just don't believe in this at all. Don't buy dumb stuff that to please other people.
100%.
Don't buy dumb stuff to please other people, especially a car.
It's the worst depreciating asset. I mean, outside of maybe buying a Rolex and putting diamonds on it. But yeah.
It's a dumb idea. Don't buy stuff to impress other people. Yeah. And people do. They do all the time, and it's keeping up with the Joneses. And so I suppose a car is an expression of who you want to be, like you say, because you're trying to prove I don't know what.
Well, as much as we say that you don't buy things for other people, I think subconsciously we are aware that people do judge.
Yeah.
It's something that's just ingrained in who people are.
It's that quick thinking, snap judgment that people have.
Yeah. I mean, if I see somebody who's driving an SUV, my immediate response or my immediate perception is that person has a family.
Yeah.
If I see a young person driving a coupe, I'm always thinking that they're adventurous. There's always these snap judgments because what are you going to do? You can't just walk up to people and be like, what's your situation? That's kind of weird, But we just judge people in general, and it's not necessarily bad.
No, I mean,
think
it's just part of human nature.
Yeah.
All right. So in a second, we're going to get our expert journalist, Chad Lückhoff, to come and speak to us about the 2021 Mercedes-Benz E200 Coupé. But before we do, let's round this piece off with how do you feel about your car? Is it an extension of you?
I think so. The reason why you should care about your car is because it is an extension of you, whether you like it or not. A lot of people think mobility only, but I think there's more to it. There's definitely a connection that we have with our cars. I feel like I'm about to cry just thinking about it. But yeah, that's, it's deeper than just A to B.
Well, in that case, sit back if you're listening to this, check out what you're driving and ask yourself, what does this car say about me?
Yeah, exactly.
And what do I want to express? On that note, let's take a short break and we'll be back with Chad Lückhoff. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we have with us none other than Chad Lückhoff to review the 2021 Mercedes-Benz E200 Coupé. Welcome, Chad.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
We were talking just before you came on about the topic just before this, which was your car as a extension of you. Is your car an extension of you?
Absolutely.
You've got that.
I've got several vehicles.
You've got several vehicles, but you've got that one vehicle that I see you're in love with, which is the silver.
So I have
two-seater.
Yeah, I have two Mazda MX-5s.
MX-5s, yes.
Yeah. So I basically have an NA, which is the first generation with the pop-up headlamps and that sort of thing, and then I have the second generation as well. And as much as they are essentially the same vehicle, same chassis, similar engines and that, they couldn't be too more different as far as Mazda MX-5s go.
You feel they say different things?
Slightly. So the one has a slightly more nostalgic, classic, traditional approach to motoring, which says that, I can appreciate the purity of motoring and the art of driving, the actual physical activity of driving.
Yeah.
I don't have ABS. I don't have traction control. I've
got to really drive.
I have to really drive this car.
Yeah.
I don't just let it drive me. Whereas the other one is slightly more stylish, a little more opulent. It looks a little more classy. And, if I was to go around to a braai, I'd take the older one. Something to chat about with the mates. If I was to go to a business meeting, I'd take the slightly newer one, the slightly more stylish and classy one. And it's just listening in on you guys' conversation, it is rather pertinent and rather
important.
Important is probably a good word of putting it. A good way of putting it when you actually purchase a vehicle. Is what sort of statement are you trying to make?
Exactly,
and just put yourself in the seat of somebody attending a business meeting.
Yeah.
If you rock up in a Porsche 911, they're going to go and say,
I want to do business with him.
More seriously,
No.
He gets paid too much.
If
If you rock up there in a Toyota Corolla Quest or something of the sorts, I don't trust him. He doesn't make enough money. He's obviously not good at his job. But if you roll in there with a C-Class or a 3 Series, 2-3 years old, middle of the road, okay, he's fairly successful. He knows what he's talking about, but he's not flash. He's not overpriced. That's the guy I want to do business with.
Makes sense. Makes absolute sense. Before we get into the 2021 Mercedes-Benz E200 Coupé, Wandile, this existed many, many, many moons ago with grass or lawn. So hundreds of years ago, the only people who had lawn were the wealthy with big estates. So if you owned a big property, what you would have is lawned areas in front of your property.
I see.
And the lawn was a status symbol because nobody else could afford those big areas and those lawned areas.
Yeah.
So that then translated into modern life where grass becomes something that everybody has. And what you don't know is that it actually stems from being wealthy and having big lawned areas in front of your big castle.
Exactly.
Back in the day,
being able to afford property versus just having a little rental unit, hut, something of the sorts, or living in a commune, having to live in the city.
Because whether you like it or not, we're connected to, or people will judge you based on what they see first.
Exactly.
Which is sad, but it is what it is.
Well, anyway, we don't want to cut it too much into the 2021 Mercedes-Benz E200 Coupé, Chad. So tell us about this car, and if you can see it, it's standing
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Stunning.
It's right there.
Yeah, I mean, first time that we're actually using the studio in this way, and I think this is absolutely fantastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's great.
Don't worry about cutting into it because this isn't an all-new model. It's still the W213 E-Class that you've known and loved for the past 4 years or so. It's basically just a facelift.
Okay.
So they've updated a couple of things around it. And so it's largely more of the same. But I tell you what, this is now, we're talking about the perceptions and the status and what sort of character you're portraying and what this would mean to you.
So this is the one you would go to a business meeting in?
Absolutely.
Even
But
if you owned a Porsche 911?
Being the coupe, it just says something, okay, possibly doesn't have kids,
Bit adventurous.
slightly more adventurous, a little more sporty, a little more fun and outgoing, sort of enjoys life. And that gives you all the insight, or at least you think that it gives you all the insight into their character that you could possibly want. But yes, that is the perceptions.
So the E-Class, something I found really interesting, is the most sold Mercedes model ever.
Yeah, and we can thank all the German taxis for that.
And can you kind of unpack that a little bit for somebody who hasn't been to Germany?
George, you've been to Europe.
Yep. And
Basically E-Class.
E-Classes
Beige Mercedes-Benz E-Class is just about everywhere. Taxi.
But what I can't understand is why is it beige? And I theorize that it's beige because the sky is grey.
I think that it's just to identify it as
As a
being,
taxi.
as being
Yeah.
Like a yellow London
Like a-
taxi cab. Yeah, fair enough.
black cab or New York taxi cab being yellow. In Thailand, they're pink.
Oh,
So if you go to Thailand, many of their taxis are this fuchsia style pink.
Yeah.
And it's easy to identify. Nobody else is going to go out there and
buy a pink car,
a fuchsia pink
That's
car.
true. No one's
that's
going to
true.
buy
A beige car.
Beige car. How many beige cars have we got on AutoTrader? That's
actually have a
very
few.
interesting. Do we?
You actually have a few.
Is beige even a color?
It is a color, and I've seen a lot of kind of high-end cars or brands or manufacturers have beige as one of the
as an
kind of
option.
premier cars. Yeah.
It's not one of those that sells particularly well, but it
You
is.
stand out,
It is on the
whether you
palette.
like it or not.
There are 358 beige cars on AutoTrader today.
Is that
and yours today.
is that hearing aid beige or prosthetic beige?
That's a good question, actually. Some of them look like vomit beige. But no, most of them look like Land Rovers and SUVs. A few Porsches here, which looks terrible. But anyway, we're getting off the topic.
You can understand the earthy tones when you look at things like Land Cruisers and the likes. And you think of a Land Cruiser, you're not thinking of a white Land Cruiser, you're thinking of a beige Land Cruiser.
That's
Beige
very
Land
true.
Cruiser.
Yeah.
And it's just those desert tones. But it's best suited for that. When it comes to a beautiful coupe,
Don't buy it in beige.
Don't go beige.
the last thing I wanted is pantyhose beige.
Oh man, that should be a real color. That should be a name of an actual color.
Pantyhose beige.
It probably is somewhere with some obscure Czechoslovakian manufacturer.
So I mean, that kind of like says something about the individual driving this car. And I mean, I've always liked Mercedes-Benz. They're very solid, not in terms of solid as in the drive itself, but it's a solidly
Fit and
built
finish.
brand.
Yeah.
And when you climb in the car, it feels like quality.
Feels like quality.
it feels
Does it
bespoke.
still feel like quality?
It definitely does still feel luxurious. So I'm going to talk quickly around the changes, and then we can dive into the nitty-gritty bits that you'd possibly find interesting. So they changed up the front grille. Coupes and cabriolets only get the AMG line now. The regular line, exclusive or executive line.
Is that just in South Africa or is that globally?
In South Africa.
Okay.
In South Africa, they just found that those models weren't selling, which tells you a lot about the buying habits and exactly where the coupes and the cabriolets are positioned related to our previous statement.
Yes.
We're only buying AMG line.
Yeah.
We're not buying the run-of-the-mill executive line or exclusive line, whichever one it is. So they've changed up the grille. They all get this diamond pattern and the twin spar treatment off the sides of the badge, reprofiled the headlights, full LED units there, and of course the lower apron has been changed. They've done similar around the back where they've given it new tail lights with LED elements, modified the bumper a little bit, and then they made some changes to the interior. So we've got two new trims, so an open pore ash wood, sort of like a grey finish, very nice, very stylish. And we hear that it's actually very high in demand for people that call into AutoTrader looking for C-classes and E-classes Mercedes-Benz. They want it with the open pore wood. And then they've got it in aluminium and light carbon fiber finish as well.
I mean, I'm an aluminium and light carbon fiber person, but there's got to be something said about the feel of that wood look.
The C-Class, one of the biggest things is that the quality wasn't, like if you go in a C-Class and you go in an E-Class, Can you tell that this is a completely different
In
experience?
my opinion, C-Class is more plastic.
Not completely.
That's my sort of perception.
In places,
Yeah.
yes. In places, yes. As a whole, you have to have them side by side and back to back to be able to differentiate and tell
Yeah,
the
okay.
difference between the two of them. You're only going to find large disparages with this if you go and you take an S-Class and you put it next to an A-Class. Top and tail, then you're really going to see, okay, cheap and nasty versus opulent and luxurious. E and C to a lesser extent.
Okay.
The E-Class is styled a little more maturely. It has a slightly
Business meeting type.
yeah,
it's
it has a
not as,
slightly more
in your
sophisticated
face.
look. It's less sporty, it's less youthful. So it's definitely appealing to an older audience. Instead of your 23s to 27s or 28s, this is now mid-30s, early 40s, sort of target market, target audience,
Damn,
successful.
I didn't make it.
Just out of that, hey? Yeah. Well, clearly I haven't made it either. I still can't afford one.
Oh man, I don't know about those wheels though. I'm still kind of
loving
stuck
them.
on. Really?
I'm loving them.
I love those wheels.
I really do like them. There's
I'm not sure. What is that?
there's-
What is that black outer lining? What's that for?
So
is that just
that inner, so sort of like
That
that
AMG
inner
sort of-
rim?
yeah.
That, believe it or not, is for aerodynamics, and it actually does help the fuel economy of it.
I think that manufacturers have learnt this from EVs.
the EVs? Yeah.
EVs, because
Yeah.
EVs have put a lot of effort into their rims.
There
Yeah.
are many motorsport wheels, so bespoke motorsport wheels from companies like NK, Compomotive, and the like, that will create a wheel or that have a design that looks fairly similar to this with that same sort of inner rim element.
Yes.
And it does have to do with brake cooling and
Speed tail's the same thing. It's completely
and
covered.
the vortices, yeah.
Yeah.
And the vortices around the wheels.
Well, what does this go for, Chad?
This is just over the 1 million rand mark, 1044. Call it 1050, and that's before option. So, of course, as we know with Mercedes-Benz, you can spec it to the hilt, and you can run a 200k.
But it still comes standard with things like aircon, power
Absolutely.
steering,
Power steering,
electric windows. Not
yeah.
like 15 years ago where those were options.
No, so you'd want to upgrade things like the MBUX system, their user interface. You take it from the 10.25-inch screens, dual screens, and you bump it up to the 12.3-inch screens. You add the active Distronic, which gives you some more driver aids and driver assistance. That's one of the updates with the facelift, is that many of the semi-autonomy, I believe it's level 2 autonomy that is filtered down from the S-Class.
The previous S-Class.
Previous S-Class has now filtered down into the E-Class and is now made available here, something that wasn't necessarily available to that same extent. They have had Distronic, but the same sort of driver assistance systems and the likes are now available in the 2021 E-Class.
Nice stuff. So, very finally, Chad, your score out of 10.
I'm going to give this one... So models like the 53s and the 63s are, of course, nice and crazy.
Yeah.
Those ones really stir the soul. This is an E200, but taking it for what it is, where it is entry-level E-Class Coupé, it still produces a respectable amount of power. It ticks many of the boxes. I would score it relatively high, but they have updated the steering wheel, and it infuriates me, so I'm going to go as high as 7.5.
7.5. Okay.
Yeah, let's make it a 7.5.
7.5. All right. So Chad scores the Mercedes-Benz E-Class E200 Coupé at a 7.5. And if we had to look at what else has scored between 7 and 8, the 7s are the likes of the Subaru Forester, VW Amarok, VW Caravelle. Those are the 7s. The 8s we've got so far are the Ford Ranger, VW Golf E-Golf, which I don't know if you can really score because it's not a production vehicle.
It is a production vehicle, but just not sold locally.
Not yet. Yes. No, good point. Toyota Land Cruiser is 8.5, so we won't go there. So, the only car that's in the 8 range is that E-Golf and the Ford Ranger. You feel that that's kind of fair against the Mercedes-Benz?
Like I say, they have missed the mark in a few places where I cannot see that steering wheel sticking around. We'll chat about it later, but
I'm curious to see the steering wheel.
Yeah, no, it's largely infuriating, and I don't think it's one of those things that you will ever get accustomed to, the controls on it, and that just hinders it a little bit. It just makes it seem, it cheapens it, frankly.
You gave the A-Class A35, and I think it's a 9.
Yeah. And with that,
you're saying this is a
with this money, I'll buy the A35.
For another day, definitely, because I'd like to unpack that.
Good stuff. Well, unfortunately, folks, that's all we have time for in this review of Chad Lückhoff's 2021 Mercedes-Benz E200. Thank you very much, Chad, for coming in and speaking to us about this car. And can people find it on AutoTrader?
You should be able to find it. It has been on sale for a few weeks now, probably about 2 months or so.
Yeah.
So there should be a couple of new vehicles available, and you'll definitely find a demo or two there as well.
And then if you want to go and read a much more comprehensive review of Chad's driving impression of this E-Class, head over to AutoTrader and go and look at the news and review section, and you will get Chad's expert journalist opinion on this E-Class Mercedes. So on that note, we'll take another short break. Thank you, Chad, for coming in, and we'll see you just after this.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, welcome back, folks, and interesting review by Chad on that on this E200.
On this bad boy here, yeah.
So I mean, I kind of like them. I like these E-Class Mercs. They've always been a really good middle of the road car for those who can afford them.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, everyday people send AutoTrader some motoring-related questions about all things car buying and selling, and so Wandile and I are going to attempt to answer 3 of them from our platform. So, Wandile, what's the first question?
First question comes from Nompilo, who's asking how to buy a car with low credit score. That's it.
Oh, okay. Well, Nompilo, I hope I pronounced that right.
Mm-hmm.
Buying a car with a poor credit score is unfortunately a difficult one to get around. You're going to be impacted by things like higher interest rates.
I think that's a big.
That's the biggest factor. You're probably going to be forced to put in a bigger deposit.
Yeah.
The bank might shorten the term that you can lend the money over, which increases your repayment.
Yeah.
So, putting a bigger deposit reduces your monthly payment.
I think that's the only
higher interest rate is going to increase your monthly payment, and shorter period is going to increase your monthly payment. So, my advice is try not to get yourself into a bad credit situation.
Rather save up.
In the first place. No, just, pay your credit card when it's due, even if it's the minimum payment. And, then you won't have to suffer from these things. So unfortunately, some people get themselves into situations not of their own making. Mm-hmm. And that's obviously unfortunate, but it does unfortunately impact the repayment of, or the bank's risk. The bank doesn't want to take risk. And, so another piece of advice I can give Nompilo is explain to the bank why.
Will they listen? Will they actually listen and kind of take that into account?
Yeah, with bad credit scores or borderline cases, a human being does get involved in the finance of the car. So go to a reputable dealer. Mm-hmm. And then state your case, and hopefully the bank will take that into account. Question 2,
really good question. What are the costs associated with the Sell It For Me service on AutoTrader?
Okay, so we have a service called Sell It For Me. I mean, traditionally, you can put your car up for sale privately, and you deal with all the documentation. You deal with all the interviews of the prospective buyers. You meet them, take the risk, and you sell your car. But we also have a Sell It For Me service where we provide almost a concierge service. So we will do all of the paperwork for you. We will vet the buyers for you, and we will make sure that you have a good experience and a safer experience, unless you obviously meet the buyer outside of what we recommend. You may just find that the Sell It For Me service works for you. So that's what it's about. And we got many people using it. Many cars get sold this way every single month.
Yeah, I think the big selling point is the fact that we have the biggest audience of people who are looking for cars.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas if you had to go on your own, you have to go and find those people.
Exactly. Yeah. Question 3.
How much does it cost to get an accident report from AutoTrader?
Well, on AutoTrader's website, we have a product called Vehicle Check. Go and have a look at it. It costs 99 Rand and is a very good starting point, but it'll only give you an indication of a claim via an insurance quote, which could be flagged. Not all cars have these reports, but our system will be able to tell whether a report exists or not.
And that's given that something has actually happened.
Exactly.
Right?
And then, but the alternative is go to DEKRA. It costs 2,000 Rand, but you can get a full technical diagnostic report on the car. Even better, go to the dealer that actually, not the dealer, go to the manufacturer, one of the manufacturer's dealerships that actually produced that car. And they also have 3,000 point checks that they can do.
Last thing, I almost forgot. With regards to Seller For Me, I think Campsale was actually asking about the costs. What are the costs associated with going that private route?
Selling your car yourself on our private platform is a couple of $100 depending on which package you take. Using the concierge service for Sell It For Me is a few thousand Rand. And that's because of the vetting and the service that we offer. But at the end of the day, it helps you remain sane during the sales process.
Definitely. There's so many stories of people just going insane just because of tire kickers, as people say.
Alternatively, you can list your car on our auction platform and dealers will bid on it. So give us a ring and we can put it on our
cash
platform. You'll get the cash straight away once you get an offer from a dealer. But that's unfortunately all we have time for today.
Oh, man.
So Wandile Sishi, my name is George Mienie. That has been real. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week and see you next time.
You too.